Hey guys, welcome back to Healing with AJ. My name is Ange, and a lot of you guys have been asking me about diet and how to manage the multiple food allergies. Well, if you're new here, welcome, comment, subscribe. But if you're new here, welcome and thank you for subscribing. So diet, my goodness, and managing multiple food allergies. I would say that had been one thing that it took me a year and a half before I started to feel less weighted down by the responsibilities of managing that particular side of like having a child with multiple food allergies. It's so heavy and draining. I kid you not. Like before that, I didn't even think so much of like how sensitive she was. Before I was still kind of like stuck in that mentality. Like for example, if you know if your child has been with an allergist, they will tell you, okay, well this, then like they're sensitive to it, but it's probably like they can keep it in their diet, but just yeah. But however, like if your child is like mine, like she's so hypersensitive to those things, so keeping those things in her diet just exacerbated her eczema in the long run. Or if your child like mine and they have delayed reactions, then they might be okay for one day, but then 2-3 days later you start to notice an inflammation, a flare up in their eczema. So yeah, and I think that's why at some point I was just like, let's just go completely eliminate every single thing that has come back in your, not just your hair follicle tests, because obviously even though that was disregarded, but most importantly, once you had the blood tests done for her, like for all the allergies that had come back in the hair follicle test. And I think for me, if you've done food challenges as well before, yeah, you would also know, like I had done food challenges in the past and she would react like a few days later, and I was like, if you're like me and you're just like, oh no, they were fine today, and then like 2-3 days later you're like they're suddenly itchy, there's suddenly like inflammation, and so managing the multiple food allergies. One of the things that I had to just come to terms with was that this is where we are, and wow, this is where we are, this is where we're not always going to be. So that's one thing that has helped me navigate this. Another thing that has also helped me navigate this is the fact that during the process of topical steroid withdrawal, your child's already going to be very hypersensitive. So internally, they already do not have something. Externally, they already don't have anything that's going to suppress the inflammation. So when your child's exposed to their allergen, and on the inside, internally, or even externally, their barrier is already so compromised for them to fight off anything. So that's why obviously when you are applying topical steroids, that was just kind of soothing and suppressing the issue. However, now that they don't have that anymore, they're just going to be very, very hypersensitive, and they will be very, very itchy. So what you want to do is you don't even want any of their allergens in their diet. So that at least if you can manage that, you're not always going to have control over the external allergens, for example, like pollen, grass pollen, dust mites. Dust mites you probably can in your own home, but not so much when they go out there and they're in a space where there's carpets. So during winter, that's a peak time for dust mites, if you know. But yeah, so you want to make sure like you can manage the food side of things. Okay, so for me, one of the things that I did was literally go through all my cupboards. It was like every seasoning that had any of her allergens was thrown out. I had to buy new seasoning. I had to research what seasonings did not have any of her allergies, and we just started afresh. Look at it like you're gonna have, literally that's what it was, we started afresh. Also look through all the other things that I thought she could eat, but one of the things that I had not done in the past was may contain. So if they were having that particular cereal, you're like, no, they're fine, they're okay, but it has may contain nuts, and nuts is their allergen. May contain milk is their allergen. So you want to make sure that you also eliminating that as well. There is so many alternatives out there now. I think that's one other thing I had to be grateful for, is that I don't know what I would have done if we were in times where there were no alternative. I kid you not, alternatives. I kid you not, I don't know how I would have done. But doing a lot more research every single day, and going out and buying things, yes, it's expensive, but realizing that she can have alternatives and relearning how to make her favorite meals in a way that not the traditional way that they were made, and just alternatively, like for example, replacing tomato with carrots. So if I wanted to make like a bolognese, the same ingredients that would go in a bolognese sauce, the only difference is is tomato. Just eliminate tomato to give it a sauce, for example, like replace the tomato with carrots, for example. So that was one way that I started to kind of like look at things. And then I think the more you do research, the more you realize like there's like beetroot ketchup, or and you realize like, oh, I didn't think of it that way, and then you slowly introduce it in their diet and just like, well, this is an alternative. But I think one thing for me, and which made it very much easier, is that she was very committed to getting better and wanting her skin to be better and not look, or not for it's I don't even think it was so much of how it looked. I think it was so much of how she felt in herself. The quality of life was compromised at this point. Like, she was very, 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 very unhappy, constantly breaking down. And I think it was just, you know, if your child is in an itchy state all the time, you realize like, listen, we're going to get to the bottom of this. We're going to find solutions. So yes, you may not be able to eat your favorite things anymore, but this is an alternative. Let's try it until you like it. And I'll try and make things and trying, you know, we're testing it out together. So it wasn't like she was on this diet alone. I would like, I'll now, like when I make food, like literally just make food for the both of us, and we're both eating those meals together. So she didn't feel like, oh, I'm making separate meals for her. No. Like, I'm with you, girl. I'm in this. We're in this together. There was none of that, which which was something that was just, yeah, it kind of came naturally to me, because it was, you know, if I can do that, if she can do it and she can commit to it, why would I not? And I am making it, so it's like I wanted to make sure that it would taste good, and it tastes, you know, like I would want to eat this. If this was me, I would want to eat this. So I should want to eat this. I'm making this. So yeah, that's one of the things that made that was a way for me to support her as well, so that she didn't feel like, you know, that she didn't have anyone that was navigating this with her. Even though I am helping her and I'm making the meals, I just kind of also wanted her to like, I'm in it with you all the way. Yeah. So I would say eliminate, may contain any of the products you may have that may contain their allergens. If it says at the back, may contain nuts, dairy, don't give it. Absolutely don't. What's another thing? So food, like a lot of food, I would say, like I think I've said this in my other video before, but I would say make sure that they're having more meals than snacks. So yes, they are alternative snacks, but I've never been somebody that was offering a lot of snacks anyway. So to me personally, like 1 or 2 snacks a day, max. I've never been, you know, she's never been a snacker. She would be if I didn't have her on a meal, like a strict diet anyway. Like, you know, you have breakfast, you have your fruit, then you have a snack after. Like, she was already routined and disciplined in that way. So I think a lot of things I've just maintained from how she had always been since she was a baby, or since I had started weaning. That being said, so snacks, I would say minimize on the snacks, give the body more food. So if your child's going through TSW, their skin is shedding all the time, because it's healing, it's shedding. So what you want is, you want to give it proper food so that it can help the body to get the nutrients it needs in order for it to heal. So that's why I would say, if you can do 2 solid meals a day, sometimes like instead of a snack, I would give her a food, to be honest. The last year and 8 months that she was really in the trenches of TSW. So I would say, if you can do 2 solid meals, obviously a meat that they can eat, whatever carbs and stuff like that, because you're also going to realize, like, if your child has multiple allergies like mine, you want to make sure that their weight, you don't want them to lose too much weight, which is possible for children and adults with multiple food allergies. They're very limited as to what they can eat. But I think it's like, the more research you do, the more you realize, oh yeah, I can add this, I can eat this. So whatever they can eat, just have a lot of that, incorporate a lot of that in their diet week to week. So yeah, I do keep an eye on her weight, but like I said, I give her a lot of like the meats that she can eat in every meal. There's always a meat in every meal. So if it's lamb, if it's meat, it's red meat, like everything. So you also want to, if it's like potatoes, sweet potatoes, butter squash, like she enjoys plantain, like thankfully, because that was her favorite thing. So she has that as a snack, like plantain chips. She has that as cooked. She has it cooked as well with like a side meal. There's a lot of curries, like curry dishes, like curry chicken, lamb curry, especially like saucy meals. So yeah, like maize flour, making that into like a meal, or even giving it to her in a porridge. Just really, you want a lot of like heavy meals incorporated in their diet if you can do it. I'm not really sure where you guys are from, but I would say more meals. I would say, like, even for lunch, like, she takes a flask with her everywhere she goes every day. I think it's just once a week. At school they have chips, and I think that's the only thing that they could guarantee will not, you know, have any cross contamination. And that's what she has. That's the one day a week that she's apart with everybody else in school. But all the other days, Monday to Thursday, she takes a solid meal in her flask, vegetables, whatever the meal may be, mac and cheese. It could be with salmon, it could be lamb, it could be chicken, it just like any meal. There's nothing of boundaries in that flask. And I think even the teacher sometimes is like, how do you do this every day? And I'm just like, listen. And now that they've seen that how it's paid off, to be honest with you, I think a lot more people that have seen and how it's paid off and being committed to that, yeah. They are in awe of just her, and just making sure that you don't dim, like, her light has not dimmed in any way, and just hyping it up every day. I'm just like, you know how lucky you are that you getting to take food that other people cannot have at school while everybody else is having the same thing. Girl, you have your own food. So you gotta hype them up on this journey as well. It's not easy, because, you know, they do have moments where they're just like, oh, but I want to eat everything else, like, you know, the other people. And by reminding them that, you know, their journey is special, their skin is special, and it has to be treated that way. That, listen, there's alternatives. The alternative might not taste as great as the original thing, but we just have to bask in the fact that you do have an alternative. And yeah, and she's here now, and she's great, and she's doing well. And I think even in herself, there were days where she would wake up and she wasn't itchy. And when she started to actually have like 4, 6, 8 hour sleeps, where she would say, oh, I didn't feel itchy last night, or I didn't feel itchy since, you know, you put me back to bed after that. And when I looked at the clock, I was like, so you start to notice these things. And I would say, and I keep saying 6 weeks, because honestly to God, guys, in 6 weeks of me starting the elimination of her allergies, and I mean every single thing, even the may contain included, as I said, 6 weeks, the new patches that we had seen were starting to disappear on her skin. The inflammation was coming down. So you also want to make sure that you know what inflammatory foods are that are in their diet. Tomatoes, forget it. Wheat, forget it if you can. I mean, yes, we now have a confirmed wheat allergy, which she didn't start out with. But I can honestly say that when you start doing that, you will see a difference in the skin. You will start to initially see the difference in the skin, maybe like the patches that were not necessarily there predominantly affected eczema areas, to, you know, just slowly disappearing, and or just not getting inflamed, or even the inflammation starting to like lessen as well. So yeah, I think one of the things that I don't take for granted now is being committed and remaining committed to eliminating things out of her diet, because she is so comfortable. As much as the trauma is still there, and I probably will share, because we tried to do a video recently together, and just asking her, you know, what advice she had for other people, and she broke down because that trauma of how this has really impacted her, especially during TSW as well, it's still very much evidently there, that she still cries about how uncomfortable she was in her skin, just not being able to sit there and not feel itchy. So, but now that she's on the other side, where I can honestly say, even in the last month or the last 2 months, I would say actually last 2 months,